surrounding land use, we ought to deal with those sooner rather than later. And so I guess I would ask my two colleagues who both mentioned timing, and I supported them, and I'm glad you mentioned that, if you would consider having a report back, particularly on the land use issues, within 90 days, because I think that would get to the heart of what a lot of concerns were here in the audience.
I think we can, especially if each council member jumps on nominations quickly and we get those in.
So would you be willing to amend your motion to that, Ms. Emerald, to have a report back in 90 days rather than the year?
The city attorney is grabbing the microphone.
Yeah, I would just, you have a resolution before you that says that the task force will meet for a period not to exceed a year. We can probably make some amendments by interlineation. Obviously, the simpler and cleaner we keep it, then the easier it will be to do that. We won't have to redo and renotice the resolution. So just keeping that in mind.
That would be my suggestion. I heard that from folks on both sides, that we don't, and I would ask some of my colleagues to give me, who didn't speak, maybe another couple minutes. Mr. Gloria, thank you.
Just about the timing of it, with the holidays coming up, that eats into the next 90 days. So do we want to get an extra 30 days in there, make it 120 days instead of 90 days to make up for the break in December and all that?
Well, I would actually just hope that we can conclude this by the end of this year. That would be my thought. And that,
it would be nice to have something by the end of the year. And if we can get the nominations in very quickly, then we could probably have a meeting by sometime in October.
Well, I appreciate that flexibility, and I think both sides would appreciate that. I would, to support that today, that we might change that to recommendations before the end of the year. Does that gives September, October, and November? I'm looking at the city attorney.
Yes. So as I understand it, you would, maybe perhaps directing your attention to the last paragraph of the resolution, that the task force shall meet for a period not to exceed, 4 months? 120. How exactly? And I guess I'm a little unclear as to whether you want only part of the issues to come back in 90 days or 120 days related to land use, or do you want the entire task in front of the task force back before you?
I'm sorry. I was talking to...
Well, what was your thinking? Do you want everything back in 90 days, or do you want some initial thoughts? If a concern is the moratorium and the proliferation of these, I would have a question about leaving in place the restriction that the Development Services Department placed on new permits.
But it seems to me that this is my interpretation of the restriction. Others might disagree. I don't think that is preventing anybody from opening or operating. So the suspension may be in place, but it requires an individual to actually comply with the law on that tax certificate. And it appears that the majority of operators are not doing that currently. Would you agree with that, City Attorney?
Councilman, I'm not going to actually legally opine on who is legally operating or not operating. I think to your point, though, is if you open up without, that one can, in fact, probably open up without it coming in for a business tax certificate and be out there operating. And until the police department or NCC takes action, that operation will continue.
Correct. And so there are, let me put it in my own words, there are people operating illegally now. We know that. And there are likely to be people that will continue to do that. These are my words. I'm not saying the city attorney to do that. It's in our interest as a city to have very clear rules as soon as possible, whatever those end up being. And I will just say to Ms. Emerald, who has put in a lot of time on this, to thank her again for putting time on this to try to put some structure to this. I think this is warranted. I just agree with her that, and if one of the issues is council members submitting names and for the task force, I mean, I can certainly do that by the end of the week. Speaking to myself for this council member, so I don't want to see us get caught up in that bureaucracy. But I would suggest that we do it by the end of the year, within 90 days, and then council action by the end of the year. With the caveat that we are going to have community members on there, because I think that was very important, that we have the focus on zoning regulations and issues that were brought up by numerous people, because right now there are none. You can open next to a school. You can open next to a playground. We don't want that. I don't want to talk for everybody. I do not believe people want to. That's in the best interest of the city to have that. So we need these rules tightened up quickly. And so that would be my. If we can get to the motion, I think that would go a long way to having that. Getting the right people together quickly before we go into the